Hello, YouTube! I am Pinstar, and this is 2 Point Hospital Strategy and Tactics. Quick tip. So, in our last episode, we covered the nurse dichotomy. Today, we're going to talk about the different flavors of doctors. And I'm not calling this one a dichotomy because there's a lot more flavors than just 2 of them. But there are some instances where you can merge and combine a few of them to get some, help out more rooms than just one type so you don't have too many specializations. That being said, there is a merit to specializing them. So, let's go take a look, shall we? So our first type of doctor here is the general practitioner, and I usually like to keep them in the default white outfit here. A general practitioner should be kitted out with as many general practice ranks as possible. Unlike with treatment ranks, which seem to have a little bit of a cap to them, getting more diagnosis skill is never a bad thing. There's no such thing as too much diagnosis skill, because a really, really good GP can bullseye a patient. Now, when I say bullseye, I mean patient walks into the hospital, walks into the GP's office, and gets 100% diagnosed in the first appointment. No follow-up diagnostics needed. A really, really highly skilled GP can do that. Granted, for not some of the harder illnesses won't be able to get bullseyed no matter how good the GP is, but the higher the level of the GP, the more bullseyes you can get. The faster that patient gets cured, the faster they get out the hospital, and the faster you get paid. Now, as far as how many of these GPs you want, number of GPs offices +1. Nice and simple ratio. As far as acceptable pollution on your GPs, Diagnosis 1, Stamina, Bedside Manner, Emotional Intelligence, and Training Masterclass. Those are all acceptable forms of pollution, though obviously you would want to try to keep them as pure as possible. Another alternative in the very beginning of the game, when you're sort of fishing for better employees, if you don't have somebody who's a good GP, you could always get somebody who is skilled in just the vanilla diagnostics to be your GP, and then later on, when you advance in the game, you could turn that person into a radiologist. So that is the GP. Speaking of the radiologist, you guys had a peek at that last game, but this one is basically you want 1 skill of radiology and the rest in diagnosis, the vanilla diagnosis. There, unfortunately, you cannot do radiology 2, radiology 3, etc., etc. So these guys will, and these guys are best worked in, as you can see, the Megascan and the X-ray. The Megascan radiology just lets you enter it; doesn't give you any bonuses to it, but it's such a powerful machine that you may as well, it comes with its own bonus, essentially. And then the rest of the diagnostic skills are what boost your effectiveness in there. As far as how many of these guys you want, number of X-ray machines plus number of Megascans +1. And as far as the acceptable pollution, Stamina, Bedside Manner, Emotional Intelligence, Training Masterclass, all acceptable forms of pollution. Obviously, though, you want to try to shoot for the 1 radiology and 4 diagnostics. As I mentioned before, if you don't have a good GP, you can start out training somebody in just pure diagnostics, and then once you've reached the state of getting your X-rays and your Megascans built, then you can transition these former GPs into radiologists by just giving them the radiology skill. It doesn't have to be literally the first skill you train them in. So that is that. Now, in our next one here, we're going to go into a little bit of hybridization here. So let's take a look at Gregory Wiggle. Actually, let's find somebody. Eric Flog. There we go. So there is a hybrid here, and that involves the genetics department and also just general general treatment. There are a number of different treatment doctors that are doctor-related treatments that rely on the treatment skill here. In this case, the Deluxe Clinic, the PANS Lab, the head office, and the Shock Clinic in this particular map are all treatment labs that are operated by the doctors. And obviously, you're going to want highly skilled treatment doctors in order to get good cure success rates. But there's also one other type of thing. There's the DNA lab. Now, the DNA lab is an interesting beast because this thing can do both diagnosis and treatment. The problem is that the skill that you need to enter the lab, the genetics, doesn't have a follow-up skill. There's no like genetics 2, genetics 3, the way that you have, like, for example, psychiatry 2 and 3. Some of those others, some of the other rooms that have both treatment and diagnostic options, like the ward, like psychiatry, all come with a skill set that gives you bonuses to both treatment and diagnostics. That's not the case with the genetics lab. The genetics lab is just a qualification to get in, and that's it. So the problem therein lies is that, yes, you can turn specific DNA labs to be diagnosis only or treatment only or both, and you can hire geneticists with treatment skills and diagnostic skills. The problem becomes that you can't really tell them, oh yes, Mr. Diagnostic Geneticist, go in the diagnostic DNA lab. You can't. It is impossible. So my methodology for this is pretend that the DNA lab can't diagnose. I turn off diagnosis and I build all of my genetics doctors as treatment doctors. That way they are always playing to their strengths. And what I do is I give genetics to all of my treatment doctors and let them work in the genetics lab plus all of the other treatment labs. And as such, you'll want a number of genetics treatment doctors as the number of DNA labs plus your doctor-operated clinics plus 1. It seems to work out quite well that way. Up next, we have our researchers, and this is pretty straightforward. By the way, this is not an example of a good research room. I'm experimenting around here. Good researchers should have just pure research 5. Now, one of the issues is that you need to research the ability to get higher ranks of research. So you won't necessarily be able to rocket them up to level 5, but as much as possible, let your researchers research researching, and that they will give you faster speeds on that regard. I like to usually have them in the blue shirts here, which I forgot to give you, blue trim. And up next we have ourselves the psychiatrist, and as their name implies, the only place they need to work is the psych room. And you want to have maximum psychiatry skills, both to maximize the outcomes of your treatments as well as maximize the amount of potency when you're diagnosing somebody in the psych room. The psych room, just like the DNA lab, does have the capability of doing diagnosis and treatment, and you can turn them on and off individually if you want. I like to leave them both on because the psych skill gives you bonuses to both. So it doesn't matter who's entering in. You could be for a treatment, you could be for a diagnosis. This doctor's skill is going to help them one way or the other. See, you're just here to get diagnosed, but her 3 ranks of psychiatry are going to help us get a much stronger diagnosis out of them, especially if they're of a cure type or an illness type. Hi there. So yeah, that's how you want to build these. And as far as their outfits, I like giving them the orange stripes. It matches with the orange icon in psychiatry. And then last but not least, lastly, we have the surgeon. And as their name implies, you do definitely want to stack up on surgery skills for these chaps. However, it's not all surgery. You can go all the way up to surgery 5. You need one thing of surgery just to operate the surgical center, but the rest of them just give you bonuses to treatment. However, I would not necessarily recommend surgery 5 because at the higher end, the amount of treatment bonuses can be wasted. You could get most illnesses are not that difficult so as to require the surgery 5 skill. That being said, because surgery is so demanding and because it takes so much time to both enter and leave the surgical center as far as getting changed, for the same reason we want to have stamina on our surgery nurses, we want a unit of stamina on our surgeons. We want to keep them entering and leaving the rooms at a minimum here. So that should serve you quite well, and obviously number of surgery centers +1 for the number of surgeons that you need. And I usually will give them the turquoise arm stripes outfit, just to help denote them, but that is all up to you. So I hope I don't even know the word for that, for the number of different doctor classes we have, but we got 6 of them here for you, and they're all useful in their own regard. So get training, get hiring, and let me know how they help with your hospitals here. So until next time, and this has been Pinstar, signing out. See ya.